I'm very excited to be speaking with Lou Cohen, the Chief Digital Marketer for EY Americas. Lou is someone I have a lot of admiration for, very smart, brilliant marketer who I've been lucky to be able to work with over the last couple of years. And today we're going to be hearing a little bit from Lou. We're kibitzing a little bit about the state of the B2B CMO. So, Lou, I guess I'll just begin. I think you have a brilliant media mind. You've had a great career, um, exploring all aspects of kind of the motion. If you were to think of where we are today, just as a sort of overview, and then we can start diving into some of the more exciting things going on. Where is the state of the of B2B marketing in the context specifically of media? And what are you seeing that is exciting you, and what is, I guess, keeping you up at night?
Yeah. Well, Scott, thanks for having me. It's always interesting to talk about where things are, where things are going, and B2B marketing is kind of having its moment in the marketing landscape. These last couple of years, really since COVID happened and is we're getting past all of that, I think everybody had this moment where they freaked out and they were like, "Oh my God, how are we going to reach our audiences in ways when they're not just in the office and we can't just take them out to lunch?" And the that B2B relationship is still, it's about people.
Yep.
And so very much so everybody had to shift into digital engagement, virtual engagement, and that's persisted even as people are going back to the offices and back to work and back to life. And so the last 2 or 3 years have all been all about first party data.
Hmm.
How do we avoid the cookieless future? How do we deal with keeping our own owned data in our systems in a way that's meaningful, usable, actionable? And now we have this impetus of AI. And it's not like AI is new to anybody that really knows what's going on. It's been around for like 70 years. Generative AI is kind of changing the way the average person understands AI.
Yeah.
And that's forcing everybody, regardless B2B, B2C, B2B2C, everybody's trying to figure out how do we put this to work for us. So to me, like it's exciting that we have a new wave of change coming that's material, meaningful, and is going to potentially accelerate the way in which we're able to use and work with the data that we spent the last few years actually building the infrastructure and the systems for. And pre-COVID,
Mm.
like before 2020, it was really hard to get companies to change and go through that digital transformation that they needed to build that technology infrastructure with marketing automation, CRM, CDP, and enable data to flow in meaningful ways that drive insights and actions.
Yeah, well, so it's so interesting because I really agree. I hear it a lot. We see it a lot at the Imaginarium that the last 5 years there has just been this real transformation about how different marketers create their digital motion. Right? There are all these great new platforms, Six Sense, Demand, but there's all these exciting ways of accessing B2B specific data, that tackles the challenges that are, relatively unique to B2B or index more heavily on B2B, like the idea of a buying committee,
Yep.
it's kind of opaque way of building an audience. And so all these new things have happened, right? And people have been sort of glomming together these new tech stacks. And now I feel, and I think this is something that you kind of just indicated as well, that there is suddenly a little bit of a reckoning, right? You're looking back over and you've got all this new stuff going on. People are figuring out how it works in their orgs. Some of it isn't, some of it is. And you now have this new AI thing. I don't know if you've seen any of that, or if that resonates at all, and how are CMOs dealing with that challenge? Of
Yeah.
sort of looking backwards while looking forwards, when sometimes these are pretty big enterprise decisions, like, oh, we're going to bring on this platform, we're going to.
Absolutely. I mean, AI, where it is today, people are now very aware and in tune with the fact that AI is part of our world.
Yeah.
And that's great, right? That I think that's helpful because the way I describe this to my students, because I'm also a professor,
Yeah.
is this is like when I was an undergrad, this is that Windows 95 moment. It's it's a time when you need to double down, learn how this stuff works, make it your own, understand that generative AI and AI tools are going to be part of your everyday life in the working world going forward. And as a young person, if they can really grasp it and understand how to make it work for them, they will be advantaged in the workforce going forward.
Hmm.
And in specifically B2B, we're applying this to our data so we could be smarter about ABM efforts. We're applying this
Hmm.
to data normalization so that we can actually find the needle in the haystack insight out of our data, um, making better decisions faster. It's not just, oh, I can create content faster,
Right.
because frankly, that's interesting, but that's still not quite human. And you need
Hmm.
somebody to edit, review, and make it personal. And right, so the creativity that it unleashes for people that are not as creative, great, fantastic.
Yeah.
But there's still something to be said for quality content and quality graphics and video that AI just isn't quite there yet.
Right.
Um, but on the data side, it's
And
really
woe the day when it is. Like
well, it's
when
coming.
it
It's
gets,
going to happen.
I know.
Um, but I was in a class last night. I had a student specifically ask, like, can I just create a website with all AI driven content? I'm like, well, you could,
Yeah.
but what if 50 other people did the exact same thing on the same topic? None of you are going to win SEO,
Hmm.
and that's where AI driven content is going to fail. It's not going to be the I can just create stuff really fast and quick and it's going to just throw over the fence. You still need something that makes it unique, something that personalizes it, something that turns it into useful content, not just AI created something.
Well, and it is, there are funny, interesting outcomes, and I don't want to go too far afield from, but it's, because I have this conversation all the time, as many of us in our industry do, and people are like, they're either the sky is falling or anything's possible. There's such extremes of perspective, and I always am, my kind of correlation to this is like, we can't really predict what, when this really is working as it will work, what the outcome will be, much as when, you know, as disruptive as Gen AI is it more disruptive than the photograph, right?
Yep.
Which really, I mean, think how transformative that was, and what was the output of that? You know, modern art, you know, contemporary, modern and contemporary, non-figurative art. You know, I mean, because the language of change, the language fundamentally changed, right? So, and because that's what humans are adaptive in that way, and it will be interesting to see what content is when, you know, what we try to do, how we express things then. So, but yes, certainly Jen. Yeah, I didn't.
The far more interesting part of AI to me is what's possible in automation,
Yeah.
systems and supply chain, data management, and governance. And I recently described to somebody, the way that you're seeing AI show up today in the marketplace is nascent. It is everybody's dabbling, trying to figure it out, make it work for them, find some core efficiencies, and that's great.
Yeah.
Everybody should be doing those things. But what we're going to see from the really leading edge companies in the next year or two is complete overhauls of process and systems.
Yeah.
And I equate like a hospital. So if you go to an emergency room because you have an illness or you're hurt, today you normally have to go to a check-in counter, somebody takes your basic information, then you sit and wait, then you speak to another person, probably a nurse, who's taking your vitals and basic
Hmm.
information, making sure you're not dying. And then you're going to wait some more, and then you're eventually going to get to a room or a table, and then a doctor's going to see you, diagnose what's going on. They're then going to go. You're going to wait some more, right? So that process of an emergency room could be far more efficient.
Yeah.
Well, if you introduce AI to that diagnostic process from the moment somebody walks in, and you centralize the resources of nurses and doctors, you could completely change that experience with AI,
Hmm.
where somebody could walk in and when they check in, they like put a thumbprint on if they're already in the system with like NYU Langone or Maimonides or New York Presbyterian, knows who they are, pulls up their health
True New
record.
Yorker. I mean, just ripping off all the New York hospitals.
Right. Uh, but like that experience is possible, and then you meet with a nurse who checks your vitals, puts you in a room. There's a centralized doctor who's sort of expediting
Yeah.
the process, checking basic vitals information. What did you tell the nurse when you checked in? And could actually have the like the medication, the x-rays, whatever else, moving along before the specialist doctor gets to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole process could be optimized with AI from you walk in the door, you get the information and move on, or even what bed do I put you on? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
today, hospital networks all over the country are using AI to optimize room assignment.
Yeah.
Imagine when they take that to the next level over the course of the next year or two, and your process of an emergency room visit will be more efficient because the best hospitals in the country are investing in that technology today. We just haven't seen it yet as consumers.
Yeah. So when you think, and as we're applying that to sort of the sort of strategy and tactics that someone in your seat has to sort of think about, obviously your anecdote brings customer journey and customer experience to mind, obviously. But when it comes to the role of media in an organization, where are the areas that you see that applicate? How do you see that sort of pulling through today, right? Like in the state of the CMO, how do they pull that through when you're thinking of the strategy for next year, right? Is it around
Yep.
data? Is it around, I'd love to hear that.
So the data management piece is probably the one where we're going to see AI the most in the
Yeah.
coming year. But it would be great to simplify the buying process even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like today, as an advertiser, if I work with 20, 30 different media companies, that's a lot of different relationships, time invested by my agency teams and my own team on the media side to handle our planning, our buying, our operations and optimization efforts. It's a lot of disparate work. So for each individual media channel, there's a planning process, a buying process, a contracting process.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to go through execution and production. Then there's like the whole logistics of it and tracking. Um, and as that campaign is running, are you optimizing during, pre, post, after? It's a mess.
Yeah.
And we could simplify things if we want to. I don't believe we're going to see like media consolidation in a meaningful way in the near term, but I do think we're going to see increased M&A activity in the space. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to see some of those smaller guys that were pretty effective get acquired by bigger guys because the financial markets deem M&A activity as pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is going to decrease competition in the space, which means pricing should increase over time.
And by this, do you mean like media channels, like or like public? Are you talking about like effective ways to sort of, particularly in the B2B space, like uh, consolidation by people like, I mean, who was it? TechCrunch, and I'm forgetting who they just, things
Yeah.
like that. Way Emerald has rolled up a bunch of events and publications, that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
And like several like media companies have been buying up smaller publishers.
Yep.
DSPs are buying up smaller DSPs,
Totally. Yep.
right? And that consolidation is going to accelerate as rates come down in the financial markets because it'll be cheaper to acquire than to build.
Yep.
And that consolidation is actually bad for pricing
Yep. Yeah.
because
Totally.
less competition, higher prices.
Mm-hmm.
So I do expect that media budgets are going to have to increase in the coming years as a result, but particularly in B2B because we are all targeting the same people. We're all going after the C-suite executive. And this is where the data starts to meet, it has to uncover where are those opportunities. And so we need AI to be our partner in sifting through the data to find the golden and the golden nuggets and even the silver and bronze ones
Yeah. Right.
because those opportunities are going to be really hard to come by. On a given day, I get maybe 30 to 40 cold solicitations by email alone for different opportunities to buy lists, advertising, anything.
Sorry if I'm ever one of them.
Don't worry. Most of which I ignore, right? Because if I don't
Not
know who you
mine. I
are,
mean, come
no,
on.
I do read your emails, Scott. But most of the cold solicitations from people I've never heard of, I just
Right.
flat out ignore because I get so many of them, and it's not
Totally.
worth
And
it to
AI
me.
is so noisy, and there is no mode. That's a really interesting. So the interesting about AI technology, given how powerful it is that it is born as a commodity, right?
Yeah,
Usually some transformative thing comes out, and it's like, oh, there's a the power of pricing. There's all these great benefits to an innovation. Gen AI data is basically all, it comes out like water. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? It's like there's no
it's
barrier
just
to
out
entry.
there.
So everyone's proliferating these sort of approaches. They're just sticking a little concept on top of, one of these, commodified Gen AI, LLM or something, and to sift through and find out what's really meaningful, or do it on your own, right? I mean, uh,
I mean, the other side of it is we'd like to be the answer for some of those prompts in AI, right? Like if you're looking for supply chain information and help as a business, I'd love EY's content to be the answer to that query.
right? Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and from conversations I've had with the guys at Bing and Google, there's no clear answer on how to get your content to be the response to a prompt.
Oh, it's
And
I am everyone is one. I mean, it is like this is a great thing, and no one has talked about this, by the way, that I've spoken to, and I think about it all the time. Is SEM and SEO in the age of Gen AI? I know I have
yep,
started. I wouldn't say more often than not, but getting there to use chat instead of Google for searching. I To say that I like the answers better is an understatement. The response from a when I'm using chat to get knowledge is always better than what I'm getting from Google.
but
So
this isn't so B2B. This is like B to everybody,
yeah, yeah.
um, right? If you want to be the answer to a prompt in Gen AI, good luck figuring out how to have your content be the thing that comes up
And
because there
also,
is no awareness of how to do this yet.
to be candid, there's also is the benefit in Google is that people then follow the link back to your content. If you're
In theory, right?
if
That would be
you're
great.
well in theory, but if you're fueling a response in ChatGPT, no one knows that you're fueling it.
Well, so there are links depending on the prompt. So
Yeah.
you will get
Oh,
citations and
totally. You can't, but it is much more opaque and less clear. So anyway,
completely.
it's very interesting.
But
Um,
that's an interesting piece of it because the behavior of consumers, right, whether they represent a business or themselves, is going to lean more and more into prompting and querying AI chatbots rather than Google and Bing.
mhm.
And that's why, like Bing coming out with their ChatGPT partnership ahead of Google's launch of Bard, that was like a coup for
Yeah,
Microsoft. And I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think it gets enough attention. Like Microsoft pulled something off there,
Right.
and their integration with GPT in Bing is actually pretty remarkable
I mean,
compared to
yeah,
Gemini.
it certainly seems so. Like better than it is leading on all this stuff. All right, and now if so, a lot of what you're describing, trying to find the signal in the noise, trying to circumvent the expense and complexity of targeting a noisy C-suite.
Hmm.
Um, I guess one last question I'd love to ask is, well, around ABM. I mean, it sounds like these are ABM tactics to a degree. Do you feel like that is, I mean, is that a space in which you think B2B marketers, there will be increased focus, attention, and on the account-based motion, or do you think, demand gen will kind of rise again because some of these ABM platforms have not worked out quite as everyone intended?
I would say demand gen and ABM go hand in hand. They
Yeah.
are kind of the same, they're twin brothers or sisters, and they really do need to work together because demand gen is really about the prospecting for new business, whereas ABM is you kind of know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that journey those last few years about first party data has been all about getting people from unknown to known.
Mm-hmm.
And once somebody is known, now I can go after ABM because I know who they are. And frankly, any B2B company that does not have some investment in an ABM strategy is easily 5 to 10 years behind where they should be in
Right.
their strategy. Um, Now, having that said, an ABM strategy to go after your known touch points alone without having prospects to grow net new revenue,
Mm-hmm.
that is a miss. But here's the rub, and I think something that we've realized in the B2B space the last few years is without a solid brand that people actually recognize and are willing to talk to, none of this matters.
Yep.
Because you need to have a brand that people are willing to engage with in the first place. And that brand can't just be, we're XYZ company and this is what we do. You actually have to stand for something, you have to have a purpose. And it doesn't matter if you're selling shoes or you're selling professional services. you have to have a purpose as a brand. I mean, working at EY, I always say I'm in a privileged seat.
Hmm.
We're one of the big four, but we actually have a purpose. And right now, it's all about navigating how we shape the future with confidence for our clients.
Hmm.
And that story that we're trying to put out in market is about, we understand what's going on in the industry. We know what's happening. Everything from M&A, supply chain, tax, audit, like every bit of business support and professional services, EY touches.
Hmm.
That future is uncertain, right? We've never been in more uncertain times. Elections all over the world this year, wars happening, financial markets in crazy places. Um, even throwing in the Olympics just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
And where we're going with AI is going to change how people work.
Yep.
And EY's made tremendous investments. We have EY.ai online
Yep.
for people to see what's up there. But you know, we can help companies navigate that. I need to tell that story in the market, but if they're not receptive to EY as a brand,
Hmm.
that makes it really hard to get that engagement or even open that conversation. But if I do have a strong brand, if we are telling that story effectively, then when our client teams are going in and talking with executives at different companies, that conversation, that door gets opened so much more easily because there's a receptiveness to, oh, okay, I understand EY is a big company and they've got all these resources and investments and right. So the better job we do at building the brand, the easier the ABM and demand gen gets. And the data behind it brings it all together so that I can internally then show marketing is opening doors for opportunities. That's our job.
Hmm. I love that. That's the flywheel. That's the dream.
Yeah.
Um, Lou, we are at a time. I don't want to pull you over what I promised. We will have these insights in our first Imaginarium State of the B2B CMO report. Comrade, I really appreciate it. I always love
My
talking to you.
pleasure.
And I'll speak soon.
All right. Be well.
Awesome, bud. Bye now.